Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to Atmosphere Live, our online event for Asia Pacific. I'm Peter DiPietrantonio, the Head of Marketing for Google for Work here in Asia. At Google for Work, we believe you should be able to work the way you live. And we're bringing that freedom to you digitally, so you can be part of our largest event of the year from the comfort of your own workplace. Over the course of the day, you'll hear from visionary speakers, interact with Google experts, and ask lots of questions. Our keynote speakers include Amit Singh, President of Google for Work, and he will provide insights to the digital transformation trends shaping our workplace and how you can evolve to a digital business. Sundar Pichai, Senior Vice President of Product Development at Google, will share his approach how Google innovates from ideas to products using the latest cloud technologies. We'll also be joined by Brian Stevens, Vice President of Google Cloud Platform, and he will provide insight into Google's approach to infrastructure as a service and how your business can take advantage of the platform that powers Google. Lastly, the team from Deloitte will provide the latest insight into the collaborative workplace and what the collaborative economy means to you. Following the keynote, there are 4 streams which will provide a deeper view of the tools which are empowering the digital workplace. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker, and I'm delighted to welcome Amit Singh, President of the Google for Work team.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Atmosphere Live Asia Pacific. I'm delighted to be with you today and to be broadcasting to 10,000 people across 9 countries in the Asia Pacific region. Now, Atmosphere Live is a new event format that I'm personally very excited about. It's designed to spark conversations about how a new generation of technologies, such as cloud, social, and mobile, are digitally transforming millions of businesses globally, disrupting business models, and perhaps most importantly, changing the expectations that people have of work. As you'll see through the course of today, there's simply never been a better or more uncertain time to be in business. Managing work and talent in today's dynamic, distributed mobile economy is incredibly challenging. And the need for business leaders to be the shepherds of this change is of paramount importance. It's for this reason that a few things have jumped into the consciousness of business leaders as quickly as digital business. And increasingly, they're understanding that they must succeed in creating transformation through technology, or they'll face destruction at the hands of those that do. Consider for a moment what's happening with the transportation and communications industries. Now, Uber was founded less than 5 years ago and is now disrupting the taxi industry in more than 22 countries. But they're also now a financial services company. In November last year, Uber did something huge. The company said it had lined up $2.5 billion in outside financing for low-interest car loans for UberX drivers. Now, they've changed the technology itself. From a phone, I can get a car, I can pay for it, I can rate my driver, and oh, by the way, I can get cars of different kinds. This is really fundamentally transforming not just personal travel, but the logistics industry as well. Snapchat, founded a few years ago at Stanford University. It was a mobile sharing site where students would send goofy pictures and videos to each other, and those would expire in a few seconds. Today, they have more than 500 million users and have quickly evolved from a video and photo sharing platform to also include new offerings such as Snap Money. And by the way, they're valued at more than $10 billion and have fewer than 50 engineers and are built entirely on Google. What's fascinating about both of these examples isn't just that a new digital business model, but the speed at which they are executing. So I'm naturally delighted to be kicking off today's program. I want to share some observations together with Google's vision for the future of work, something that we're increasingly referring to as the digital workplace. I've also chosen a few of my favorite stories of customers that have transformed their workplaces to help bring this to life. Let's get started by shifting gears to think about work for a few minutes. Most of us will spend more than 100,000 hours at work. So we believe that it should be meaningful, not a daily grind, done in isolation, on an old desktop in a sea of cubicles. Even more, we believe that technology should make work better. It should make it easy, not just to get things done, but to get things done with people who inspire you. And you should be able to work from anywhere and in a way that lets you have real impact. 10 years ago, we started helping businesses bring Google's consumer technology along with the features, controls, and services that businesses needed for work. We first brought Google Search and then Gmail to businesses. Today, we also offer the scale and reliability of Google's infrastructure to developers with Google Maps and Google Cloud Platform, and have also started offering Android and Chromebooks to businesses around the world. Along the way, we've invested in what matters most to our customers and partners: security, transparency, compliance, and customer support. This is one of the largest areas of investment and one of the fastest growing business units anywhere at Google. Now, work today is very different than 10 years ago. Cloud computing, once an idea, is abundantly available and it offers truly amazing experiences. Collaboration is possible across offices, cities, countries, and continents. Ideas can go from prototype to development to launch in a matter of days. Working from a computer, tablet, or phone is no longer just a trend, it's a reality. And millions of companies, large and small, are turning to Google's products to help them launch, build, and transform their businesses, and really help their employees work the way they live. One of my favorite customer stories is All Saints. They're a great example of the new generation of digital business. Based in the UK, they are very quickly, building a cutting-edge business in online and offline clothes retailing. They understand that technology for the workplace isn't just about a better way of doing business, it's about empowering everyone in the organization to be connected to the people, data, content, and devices necessary to have an impact. Let's take a closer look.
All Saints is a digital brand and we're focused on providing the best experience to our consumer, whether online or offline. I think the really amazing thing about the brand is that it's completely vertically integrated. So we make absolutely everything, whether that's our fashion collection. We have a design team of 34 in-house, creating the imagery or films, building all of our own stores, or indeed the furniture that goes in the stores. We even code our own website.
Not only did we implement Google in our headquarters, we've implemented it in our factories, our stores, and our offices around the globe. Google is essential not only for relationships, but for the products that we make. What used to take thousands of emails is now consolidated into one document in Google Drive. On the product side, all of our vendors are fully connected to our headquarters with their own Google accounts and even their own Nexus tablets.
By having my Nexus 7 on the floor, it allows me to essentially be at my desk 24 hours a day. I can access my figures whenever I need to, I can access my floor plan whenever I need to. Any communication that's coming down, whether that be email or Hangout, it's all here, and it's not just me. Any of my management team can interact with it as well.
Nothing could happen if we weren't all connected. To be able to move at the pace we move and to be able to take the creative ideas and execute them and deliver them to our global consumer base, we need to have a set of tools, which we do in Google, that allows us to communicate in real time all of the time.
Our business is collaborative, driven by experimentation, and we need tools that can keep up with us. For us, that's Google.
All Saints have not only rethought the business model, but are also placing a premium on team collaboration to execute incredibly fast. So the real question is, what are the characteristics of these new digital businesses that is making them so successful? Or more specifically, how can traditional businesses digitally transform their workplace? I host meetings with business executives from around the world at the Googleplex every week. And they've always asked, what makes Google, Google? Now, we believe there are certain characteristics that define digital businesses and also define Google. They are, firstly, they leverage the web and technology to engage customers and partners at scale. They make it incredibly easy for current and prospective customers to find, understand, like, try, and buy their products and services online. Secondly, the collective intelligence of the entire organization is available to every employee. For example, at Google, we make everything available within Google Drive, and everyone has access to the relevant content and data. Thirdly, work and processes are collaborative and mobile. For example, as you saw in the All Saints video, they are using Google Apps to collaborate and make decisions in real time from wherever they are. Fourth, data is managed as an asset. Our chairman, Eric Schmidt, has a popular saying, "In God we trust, everyone else must bring data." For example, Netflix collects more than 70 data points from each of their 30 million customers. This helps them determine popular shows as well as the viewing habits of their audience. So learning the ability of collecting large amounts of data and making it actionable in real time is a key characteristic of a digital business. And finally, there are no expert barriers. Technology gets out of the way, it's simple to use, it's delivered at scale, just like it does in your consumer life. Technology like cloud computing and mobility will form the basis of enterprise IT. And finally, technology should not be the domain of a few. Instead, it should be embedded in everything that you do. To bring these characteristics to life, I'd like to share two videos from companies in the same industry, albeit in different sides of the world. The first is a relatively new company that is utilizing digital technology to reinvent the grocery supply chain. The second, Woolworths in Australia, has been working with Google on a project to transform their workplace. Now, by way of introduction, Ocado is the world's largest online-only grocer that processes more than 150,000 orders per day. Now, while their primary focus is getting groceries from online orders to people's homes in excellent condition, they continue to push the limits of what technology can do to automate and scale their business. Let's roll the video.
Ocado is the world's largest online-only grocery retailer.
Each Ocado building caters to about 600,000 people that can get all the food they need from us every week.
I'm Paul, and I head up Ocado Technology.
And I'm Sverker, and I'm in charge of everything we haven't done yet.
We chose Google Apps because we are a 24/7 operation, but we're also a multi-site operation. So we need our employees to be able to access documents, emails, calendar information, and to collaborate whenever and wherever they are. My passion is very much about automation. We're all about making things simple for our customers, but behind that simplicity, there's an immense amount of complexity and technology in order to do what we do. Our business spits out 2.5 megabytes of data every single second. Whenever our customers click on a product, or whenever our vans drive down the road, we're constantly recording those streams of data, and we have to capture that data and be able to process it in a scalable fashion. And one of the key places that we put that is now in the cloud. Using App Engine, we recently built a new version of our Where's My Order application. This allows customers to find out where their order has got to within our production cycle, and once it's on the road, the integration with Google Maps allows them to see exactly where it's got to.
When I'm looking at putting Ocado in other countries, I can see that we can still offer the full range of Ocado services from the cloud, and that's a great advantage to us. We're taking a chore, which is grocery shopping, and we're turning that into quality time with the family.
One of the things I really like about that video is the statement that Sverker made, that he's in charge of everything they haven't done yet. What's amazing about Ocado, which was not mentioned in the video by the way, is that they have become the online grocery arm of several large UK brick and mortar grocers such as Waitrose. Lastly, the Woolworths story. They are the largest retailer in Australia and have used Google to enable 200,000 employees to help transform their workplace, to connect, share ideas, innovate on any device at any time. Let's take a look at their story.
I absolutely love food. I love talking to customers about the food that we're cooking. It's a stone-baked bread, prawn tiger raws. This is our truffle salami, Granny Smith apples for my favourite apple pies.
Woolworths is Australia's largest retailer. Communication in an organisation with 200,000 employees is really important.
How we actually work with those people and engage with those people is a very big challenge. You can't have effective communication when you're talking to a store. It really is that power of linking and connecting. The tools that we've got now in Google really help enable that. There's a real power in being able to start to personalise people.
Most of my day is sharing a lot of ideas that we have across the company.
Everybody can actually see now what is going on, not just in our store, but even across Australia.
All of our people have a tool that enables us to actually share ideas and engage with each other. We don't have a work system and a home system. We're encouraging that there is a community in a store, but can also link and collaborate outside of work as well. You're a person at work. You're not just selling a product. You're not just doing a process. You actually are you, and you've got your own uniqueness, and we want that. We want our passion for food in all of our people and show that work can be fun.
That's one of my favorite customer stories. In closing, I'd like to thank you for joining me at Atmosphere Live Asia Pacific. I encourage you to stay connected and to take advantage of the many experts and presenters we have planned for you today. Thank you.
So it's great to be back at Atmosphere talking about a topic, the collaborative economy, that I think is incredibly important for us as business leaders in the Asia Pacific region. And in fact, Deloitte and Google have been researching topics related to the impact of digital technology on business for the last 3 years across the Asia Pacific region. We've looked at the connected continent, the impact of the internet on the Australian economy. We've looked at the connected archipelago, the impact of digital on Indonesia and the Indonesian economy. In the last year, we looked at the connected workplace, so new ways of working and how technology is driving changed working patterns in both Japan and Australia. So the foundations of the presentation that I'm going to share today are based on research and interviews that we've had with over 5,000 people in the Asia Pacific region. So both HR professionals and business leaders, but also then individual workers across multiple geographies, multiple industries. So we've got the point of view on the business side, but then also the individual worker as well. We've been able to bring that together to give us a very comprehensive view of what we believe is happening in the collaborative economy and the perspectives of both the workers and the employers that they work for. If you think about the trends that are driving the importance of this topic in the economy, digital disruption is an important place to start. Our research has determined that in the 5-year period, 2012 to 2017, some economies in the region may see at least 65% disruption. So 65% of those economies, both public and private sector, will see material change, up to 30% change in the way that they operate due to digital disruption. So there's significant change that companies are going to have to respond to. This is tying into then a war for talent. With digital technology advancing, the requirement for knowledge workers goes up. Now this is a really interesting conundrum in the Asia Pacific region because you have developing nations, but then also nations of slower growth that are tackling demographic challenges. So if I look at the countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, and India, where you're having a youth bulge come through, the economies are developing so quickly that the struggle is finding the talent, finding the knowledge workers that can meet the demands of the businesses that are rising up in those marketplaces. However, if you look at economies such as Australia, Japan, and China, you have the opposite challenge. What you've got is slower growth and a situation where an aging population means that there's a lower percentage, there's a lower ratio of talented individuals that are coming out of universities, coming out of schooling programs to be able to take on knowledge jobs, just at a point in time when digital disruption is coming through, and that's intensifying. So regardless of what point of view you're looking at, there's a war for talent in the Asia Pacific region. And in fact, there was a McKinsey study from 2012 that showed that global HR executives, almost 50% of global HR executives, think that the war for talent is most intense in the Asia Pacific region. So this region is going to be prime in the coming few years for working through this topic. If I look at the third point around the changing dynamic of business, is business model change, business model disruption, really enabled again by digital technology. If you think about Alibaba launching Alipay and becoming one of the world's largest financial services companies almost overnight, seeing over 100 billion US dollars flow into Alipay as a savings mechanism in the space of about 8 to 10 months earlier this year. That's significant disruption to the financial services sector in China. Also, if you think about Uber and Airbnb, the disruptions occurring in those sectors, the taxi services market has not seen a major change in the last 100 years. Basically, since we went from the horse and the buggy to the automobile. But overnight, Uber's become a $10 billion market cap business. Its business model has risen up and changed very rapidly. That's going to be a really incredibly important point that I'll come back to and I'll really emphasize later on in the presentation, because I think that fundamentally the collaborative economy and collaboration is really about being able to respond to that business model challenge. And then productivity and innovation in some countries, particularly this has come out in Australia and China, the productivity of individual workers is going backwards. In fact, in Australia, it's gone backwards about 1% year over year for the last 5 years. Those are tremendous numbers when you add them up. And it means that as we're seeing challenges in our economy, challenges around the workforce, we're not keeping up with productivity. I actually believe that digital technology and the investments there can help to offset and improve that productivity situation. So I think it's important to then highlight the way we define collaboration for the survey and the research and for the purpose of the topic today. So we very much focused on collaboration as a value-added activity, not just randomly working with individuals inside a business unit or a team. So the way that we've defined this is that collaboration is employees communicating and working together, building on each other's ideas to produce something new or to do something differently. A collaborative organization unlocks the potential, capacity, and knowledge of employees generating value and innovation and improving productivity in its workplace. So that's a really important tenet that served as the foundation for the research, that it's a value-added activity, and that's how we define collaboration. So then when we surveyed the employees, the individuals in the workforce, what we found is that almost 50% of their time, so 46% of their time, was spent during the day interacting and connecting with individuals, so communicating and working in groups. Interestingly, almost 40%, so 39% of their time was spent in individual work, so that was heads down work. That made the vast majority of the day, the collaboration and then heads down work. Now, even in a modern environment where you've got digital technology, you need the equivalent of a smoke break. So there was a period of time in each day that involved personal tasks and non-productive time. That, to me, is kind of the price of doing business. So when we break down the time that was spent connecting and interacting in groups of multiple individuals, what the individuals reported was that roughly 10% of their time, about 9.9% of time, was spent in value-added collaboration activities. Now, unfortunately, 16.8% of that time was reported as routine communication. I read email into that, and that might be the topic of another research piece around the value of email in organizations. But so in terms of the basis for some of our economic analysis, the 10% mark was roughly what individuals reported that they were spending in value-added collaboration time. So in particular, what we did is we looked at a case study of the Australian economy and what the economic impact of the collaboration was. And what we found was that overall, we estimated that value-added collaborative activity added almost $50 billion to the Australian economy every year, $46 billion. And we broke this down, $22.6 billion of activity related to productivity and time saving. So basically, individuals working together in a collaborative sense to drive an outcome or an activity more efficiently was that. Almost $30 billion, so $29.2 billion of value, was in the development of new products and services and innovation. So being able to do something more effectively by coming together and collaborating in groups. And then this was offset by about $5 billion worth of time where individuals collaborated, but they didn't get it right. You know, you're not always going to get value out of collaboration. Sometimes there'll be challenges. I consider that the cost of doing business, and that was estimated at about $5 billion. So overall, significant impact overall into a national economy of value adding and working together in teams and in groups. When we looked at the statistics across the different demographic areas, we looked at gender, we looked at industry spread, and we looked at ages. And you know, when you go into these research pieces, you always have your biases, you have your hunches as to what's going to come through. And what was interesting, we went into this thinking that females probably collaborated more than males. High tech or more tech savvy industries would communicate and collaborate more than some of the older world industries, and that younger people would collaborate more than older people. But when we saw the data come through, we were actually fairly anxious because we didn't see any of this evident. And in fact, there was no major spike, there was no major source of concentration around any of the demographics. So males and females roughly collaborated at the same level. There was only a 5% delta across the different industries: high tech, banking, construction, utilities. Very, very, very slight difference. And even with the age demographics, it was the over 40 set and the over 65 individuals that actually we saw more collaboration than 18 to 24, 25 to 29. And so these were the biases that we had, but that didn't play out in the data. We were actually deeply anxious about that. We checked the data several times and found that was actually what was coming through. And so we were stressed because there was no real headline in this. But when you take a step back and you actually think about it, there is a headline. The headline is that collaboration is actually widely and broadly distributed across the economy. It's distributed across gender, across industry, and across age groups. So the collaboration potential in an economy is very equally distributed. We can collaborate across many, many different areas and different groups. We asked individuals around the momentum of collaboration in their organization, and we found that 36% of individuals reported that collaboration had gotten better, had intensified over the last several years. So there is a movement towards organizations starting to get this and starting to invest in collaboration. And it played out very strongly around what the core drivers were when we asked them. And it's not technology driving this change. It's not the tail wagging the dog. What it is, it's progressive leadership and workplace culture supported by champions in organizations. So individuals that understand the technology and are able to help other individuals take that forward. And then the third top factor was actually having the access to technology. And we talked to one Google customer as part of the research where they had rolled out Gmail as part of an infrastructure upgrade. It was a mandatory, you need to go to a Gmail account for your email. But then they provided an optional, you also could move to Google Apps and start to use that technology. They appointed workplace champions that were already familiar with the technology. A lot of them had used them in other roles or used them in university. And they were able to support the individuals and teach them as they went forward. And it was an opt-in, had the option to take that up. What was really very, very interesting was that in the space of 3 months, over 50% of that organization had seen a move to where people opted in and started using the Google Apps. So I thought that was just a really interesting case study of where if you've got the right supporting environment and the individuals that can champion technology, change management becomes a lot easier. It becomes easier to move people to a collaborative environment. The hard edge business statistics and business results of this were actually quite striking, quite fascinating for us. So in the survey, we asked the individuals on one part of the survey, how is your business performing? Is it growing faster than the competition, about the same rate, or behind the competition? We then, in a separate part of the survey, asked them, does your organization have a collaboration strategy? Is it considered an important strategic enabler? Is it somewhat important? Or is it not something that's important? Do you not have a collaboration strategy? And so when we mesh that data together, what we found is something that was really interesting. We thought there'd be a correlation, but there was a very direct and very specific correlation. 52% of the individuals that responded to collaboration is important and we have a collaboration strategy, those individuals were working in businesses that were outperforming their competition. They were growing faster. A significant portion of the respondents who said collaboration is somewhat important and I'm not sure if we have a collaboration strategy, those businesses were largely growing at the same rate as their competition. But then the individuals that replied back that not sure where we don't have a collaboration strategy and we're not sure if it's that important, those businesses, almost 20% were growing slower than their competition. They were struggling and falling behind. So I think the hard edge reality of collaboration in a modern business is that having that collaboration strategy and being able to execute on it ties directly into financial performance and competitive performance and how you're going relative to your competitors. So as we talk to businesses around their collaboration strategies, we talked to a number of Google customers, a number of Deloitte clients, and one that emerged that was incredibly interesting is a business called Kogan Online. Kogan is an online-only retailer that's based in Australia, but has now grown into Asia-Pacific markets such as Hong Kong and Singapore and New Zealand. It's had a very aggressive growth strategy. In fact, it's grown from a startup company to a company now generating almost $300 million in annual revenues in the space of just a few years. And we spoke to Ruslan Kogan, the CEO and the founder of Kogan Online, around his perspectives of collaboration strategy, and how he's enabled this to grow in his organization. And what he said was that we would not be able to grow as rapidly, to grow globally, and also to have a low price strategy. We would not be able to compete effectively and efficiently if we weren't obsessed about collaboration. And when I asked him around, did he have a collaboration strategy? He said, I absolutely have a collaboration strategy. It's just not a 100-page document that you would expect, like you would have expected in previous times. What he's got is an ethos in the organization of, because it's growing so fast, individuals that are coming through, he hires ambitious people who are wanting to get promoted, who are wanting to take new roles. And the expectation that he has as a founder is that you build capability and then you make yourself redundant in your role. You hand it off to a more junior person to be able to take forward. He says, I absolutely would not be able to have that happen in our company if we weren't able to document and share the roles, the processes, and how we operate so that the individuals that are having success in my company are able to move forward. And he shared a specific instance around where he was in the process of looking at an acquisition to expand into another regional market. And he had his chief legal counsel overseas, he had his CFO overseas, his head of product and procurement, I believe, was in China, looking at new products. And there was a 48-hour time period for which he had to have a term sheet put together for this acquisition. So what he was able to do was to go out onto Google Docs, get this started, have all of the individuals that had to have a point of view in this contribute to the document in real time. And he, as the CEO and the founder, was able to govern this process, but he had his external counsel, legal counsel, external financial advisors also contributing, but he had a way to govern it. Was able to turn that term sheet around in 48 hours and get that business acquisition to happen. So I think a really fantastic example of applying collaboration and action to expand across a region and to undertake a business initiative very rapidly. So another example that I really like, a recent Deloitte project where we were doing a implementation for a large regional telecommunications company. We only had 12 weeks to get a new product up and running for them, which included back office systems, including branding, digital platform, and roll out an integration to a payment system. And we had to bring individuals together across a number of geographic areas and tie them together with our development team in Hyderabad and Mumbai in India. What was a really interesting idea, and video has come out as a real key enabler around collaboration in our research. we used video in what we think was a really unique way to tie together development teams. What you'll see behind me here is a photo of our Australia-based team that was working with the Mumbai and Hyderabad teams. We set up virtual offices where we had video conferencing, high definition televisions and video relays, and set the TVs up at the end of work tables so that we basically extended the work table and made it feel like the team in India was working with the teams in the local markets to innovate and to work on the product. What this allowed the individuals to do was to basically just yell down the table at each other as they were working on different problems, working on developing code, just like the individuals were in the room. So what that allowed us to do was run an incredibly agile process and get this product to market in the space of 12 weeks by working together collaboratively across thousands and thousands of miles, but making it feel like the people were actually in the room. Now, I've seen this applied from a telepresence standpoint before, where you're doing a meeting, but not to where you have continuous video feed of individuals across a large geographic boundary. So it's a really interesting way of seeing some of the new collaborative working styles and examples of what you can do if you think outside the box, particularly when working and servicing clients. So then if you think back to the teaser that I gave at the beginning of the presentation around how collaboration can help organizations respond to rapid business model change. This is the statistic that I really want to hone in on as kind of the cornerstone of the presentation and the findings from our research. What we found in the research was that almost 70% of people felt like they had a point of view changed because they collaborated with individuals working together in teams. But what I think is actually really exciting, and this is the response to the business model change, is that 27% of the individuals found that collaborating with other individuals, either within their organization or outside of the organization, significantly or radically change their perspective or their point of view on a problem or on a topic. So I think if organizations are looking to drive that response to business model change, the fact that we can get this kind of benefit out of collaboration is a really strong, it's an asset to help organizations to respond to that change. So you may be thinking around, okay, I get collaboration, it's important, but my organization's, it's large, it's complex. How do we tackle this? How do we drive change? We've done this before and we've failed, potentially. We've got 5 key, really important points that we've highlighted in the collaboration economy report, and it's heavily detailed in that piece. But at a very high level, the top thing you've got to focus on is making collaboration a strategic business topic. This is not about technology for technology's sake. It's not about science projects. It's not about the tail wagging the dog. It's about understanding what is that strategy that we're trying to drive and how can collaboration help us to do that. So if you're Kogan Online, it's about driving the lowest price and being aggressive in your global expansion. So how can the technology align to that? It might be, how do we get products developed faster? How do we enter new geographic markets? How do we hire the best talent? That's the top thing. That's where you start, is with the business topic. The second is invest in the right technology and invest in bringing that capability in so that you're able to enable your organization and the people to then pursue that strategic business topic. 3, and fundamentally the program will fail if this doesn't happen, is changing the culture and changing the way that people work inside the organization. Highlighting the fact that, like Kogan does, if you want to progress in the organization, you've got to enable somebody else to take your role. Being able to say that here's a young leader who's winning in sales, who's winning in product development, and they're supported by these tools, not the other way around. Identifying those leaders and letting them to role model in your organization. A tailored implementation. Change management is hard, but the example that I mentioned before, where parts of it are mandated, and you've got to move your employees to that, but then making a component of it an opt-in. Identifying champions, people that understand the technology and are passionate about it and will share their time helping others to learn it. Tailoring that implementation approach to your organization. Ensuring effective collaboration or driving continuous improvement. So not implementing a project, declaring victory and going home, but instead changing the way that we work. And as leaders, constantly talking about this, constantly driving initiatives through it so that it reinvigorates individuals' desire to collaborate and highlighting the wins that you have. So 5 simple points to really help your organization to adapt to a collaborative working style and to drive a program of change. So hopefully that's provided a perspective on why collaboration is important in the overall Asia-Pacific economies and individual organizations, and what a business can do to develop a collaboration strategy to drive forward change in the organization so your employees and your leaders can help to respond to digital disruption, address the war for talent, and fundamentally drive that business model change that we all need to be successful in the future. Thank you.
Hello. This is the biggest couch I've ever seen.
Longest couch, at least, yeah.
At least the longest, yeah. Good morning. It's great to be here. My name is Clay Bavor, and I'm responsible for product management and design for Google Apps, so Gmail, Drive, Docs, and so on. And Sundar is my boss, and so this is actually an interesting opportunity for me to get to just ask him whatever I want for 25 minutes, so I'm going to take advantage of that. And Sundar, I guess, to me, he needs no introduction. Sundar is responsible for Android. He helped build Chrome, and also is responsible for apps. And for the next 25 minutes, I get to ask you whatever I want.
There you go.
Here we go. So I actually, I wanted to start with a really personal, really important question, which is Star Wars or Star Trek?
Ooh. It's kind of a silly, interesting story. When I first came to the US, I was with a bunch of friends. This was in grad school, and they asked me, have you seen it? And I'd seen neither. They were so shocked I hadn't seen it. They made me watch the whole trilogy of Star Wars in one day. So I remember staying up late in the night and watching through it. So I would pick Star Wars. Both are great, though. Helps me a lot as I do the current set of stuff I work on. So,
yeah. Well, it's a group of CIOs here. I speak with a lot of CIOs, and I know one of the questions that comes up all the time is, if you look at kind of Google's heritage, it started as a consumer products company with search, and I think many see that as kind of the DNA of the company. And so why for Google are businesses, why is enterprise important, and how do you think about that?
It's interesting, even before we had this notion of doing something for work, for businesses, early on, I remember, I joined Google around the time we were working on Gmail and about to announce Gmail. People forget Gmail was one of, after search, it was one of the main applications we worked on. So early on at Google, both Larry and Sergey and Eric at the time had this notion that productivity was a big, big part of our goal. And so we always thought of us using technology to solve problems, and especially around information. Productivity was something we just always observed. I remember early conversations that people spend a lot of time at work, and at least as a part of your waking time, it's the thing you do the most. And so there was always this notion for our products to be useful, they need to really help people with productivity, being productive, around communication, around productivity, and so on. So it's been in this kind of founding DNA. And I think before we internalized it as we were building something for businesses, we started focusing on productivity. I think that started us on this journey. And I think it still runs today. I think everything we do, I just don't see a world, for example, if you look at computing platforms like Android and Chrome, I think gone are those days. I mean, for a computing platform to really work, it needs to work across your life. And, so thinking about all the hours you spend at work is a natural part of what we do. And so I don't think we made this conscious decision saying, we should care about work as much as it's in the founding goal of like how we think about products. Productivity is a big part of what we do, and hence serving businesses, I think for us it's a natural evolution. And over time, if anything, it's become more and more integral of how we think about things.
So you talked about how kind of the journey into this space started with apps like Gmail, and I think we announced that like April 1st, 2004, people thought it was a joke, and it wasn't. And then it was Gmail for your domain and so on. And kind of there's been the arc of apps over the last 6-7 years. I guess, where do you see us being right now, and what's on the horizon?
I mean, the evolution on apps has been pretty big for us. It started with Gmail. We've had Calendar, and then we invested a lot in our Doc suite of editors. And if you look at all these products, I mean, Gmail has over 750 million users. It's growing fast. It's on track to be a billion user product. When you look at our Doc suite, we have invested a lot over time. We acquired Quick Office, and now they're all built into Docs. So we truly care about getting them to work, across platforms, online and offline, right? And have full compatibility with Office in terms of being able to interact with Office files seamlessly. And it's been a constant journey of making the products better. I feel like we are 25% of the way, right? And so, when I look at it, how much we are investing in that area, that's incredibly exciting for me as well. Google Drive, which we started much later, but, we announced Google Drive for Work. We also announced Drive for EDU. The traction in Drive alone this year has been amazing. We've more than doubled users. As of today, this is something new we are announcing, but we are at 240 million users. These are active users of Drive. And on mobile alone, we have our growth this year on mobile for Drive is around 350% year on year. And so the product is exploding. So for us, when we see how people are adopting these suite of products, there is a big shift underway. So words like mobile first, cloud first, it's easy to talk about them, but for us, these products are built cloud first, inherently, it's not an afterthought for things like Docs, right? That's the first lines of code which were written in something like Google Docs, no one wrote a line saying cloud first. It is a cloud application, right? And so, from the ground up, I think these are set up to transition to the future. So I'm very excited about these as well. So, all these are, and for us, especially as we have invested a lot more to make it work for companies like you, we have added, a lot more controls. If I look at Drive for Work, the security that's gone into it, the controls we expose it, the integrations with things like Vault, etc., right? And so I think it's being thoughtfully evolved for companies. So I'm very excited about our app suite and the scale at which it's getting adopted everywhere. To me, is exciting to see all over too. We see it getting adopted geographically everywhere around the world. Places where I don't expect people to be using Google Apps. I'm constantly surprised when I travel, and it's getting adopted across across work, across education, across consumers as well.
So I spend my days obviously thinking about apps. What's going on in Chrome land and Android and hardware? And you have a lot of things kind of on the stove. What's happening? What's interesting?
The thing which has been exciting is I talked about apps, but if you think about the whole stack, I think now for the first time, we're beginning to address the whole solution space. And obviously, I talked about apps. It's not just our applications. How do you deploy third-party applications? How do you deploy your own applications? And what Urs talked about with cloud, is a big part of it as well. And I'm really excited because I've literally seen how much we are shifting towards serving external customers with our cloud solution. We've always run great cloud applications. I can almost count 7 to 8 1 billion user applications like Search, Maps, YouTube, etc., Gmail. We run at scale. We've done it for many years. I'm sure you don't easily recall any of these going down, and we keep them very secure, right? And so it's been in our DNA, but now to take that and bring it outside and make a concerted effort doing so, I think is a big part of the puzzle. And finally, underlying all this is the computing platforms, and both Android and Chrome. And for both of them, we have a very explicit, very thoughtful effort to bring them and make them work well for companies. And with Chrome, we are already doing it with Chromebooks. The momentum there has been incredible to see, especially around. We started getting a lot of traction in EDU. To as far as we can see, I think it's the largest selling device in EDU in the US, and we are probably approaching 50% share very soon across. And this has been in the last 18 months. I think maybe 18 months ago, our share was probably sub 5%, and we are probably approaching close to 50%. So it's been a big shift underway, and it's really set up to be very secure, very easy to deploy and manage at scale. I think for many companies, it can bring computing to parts of organization which doesn't have computing today. And then the big thing which we are working on is bringing Android for work. And Android for work and Google Play for work. It's an oxymoron to call it Google Play for work, but but the combination of Android and the ecosystem of apps, bringing that to work is it's an important project. We are taking our time because we want to be thoughtful again on security and the controls we bring, and we want to make sure it's as easy to deploy a lot of Android devices in your organization. Keep them secure, how you manage your data, corporate data away from personal data. How do you isolate it? How do you give a good user experience on top of it? These are all the things we are thinking thoughtfully. But to me, once we do that, the combination of what we are bringing, there's a big shift in computing underway, big shift. And, I can feel it. This is what I work on. I can feel how, even working on these things, I feel how fast the stuff is shifting underneath my feet. And so I feel the momentum there. And so bringing that to companies, I think it's one of the most important things we're doing.
You talked a lot about security in the context of Android work. Maybe can you go one level deeper on how we think about security? And I think if I'm channeling what's on the minds of this group and the folks on the live stream, it's all right. Controlling my devices, controlling my data, keeping it secure is the most important thing for me. And so how do we think about security and what do we do?
Look, the best way I can answer this question is Google itself as a company. We use most of our own products, right? And Google, is state of the art in terms of security. We have close to 500 engineers working on keeping Google secure alone, building secure, making sure everything just works. And because we are obviously a target, we run several large applications with very important user data. And, we are the kind of threat vectors we see, I've been in briefings, and the set of stuff we see, it'll genuinely surprise people. The scale at which, and so we work very hard. So security is deep in our culture. Everything we do, most of our products, all our important products use HTTPS. In fact, we encrypt data between our data centers, things like Drive for Work. We encrypt the data at rest. And so, we deeply care about security to an extent. I think, I would like to think, based on, I've worked at other places too, it's state of the art. And, our goal is to make sure as we design our security solutions and use our products, we bring it outside when we take these products externally and offer it to other companies as well. I think people talk about it a lot. I look at, for example, when we built Chrome OS, etc., the extent to which we made these products secure. We run contests outside. We pay people lots of money to come attack our products. Pawn to own, etc. We run these challenges, and we do very well in these. And so it's security is deeply in our culture of how we build. Good computer science involves thinking about security from the ground up. And so for us, it's a big part of what we do. And we just obviously cannot afford as Google, a single instance where customer data is, our user data is compromised. It's just unacceptable to us. And so, and I think the same is true for all of you as well. Your customer data, your data within your company. These are all sacrosanct. We think, and so so it's fundamentally built in the design of everything we do.
one of the things I love about working at Google is kind of the constant stream of interesting things that emerge from the Googleplex, Google Now and Chromecast and so on. And I have some visibility into those, Cardboard and so on. But I'm wondering if you could give us and this group kind of a sense for some of the things, in the Google Lab, some of the things on the horizon that are bubbling that you're most excited about. And I think importantly, how some of those might be translated to use in businesses and enterprise.
Yeah, no, I think that excites me. So we drive, within Google, there is a lot of focus on innovation and building the next set of important things. And increasingly, I think, because we have now seen a pattern that almost everything, when we try to innovate, we pull off some things, we fail, but we constantly strive to make sure we are pushing the boundary. And for me, I've seen a pattern over time now that, if we succeed in innovating and bringing something, almost always it translates to the workplace as well, everything we do. So, for example, when I look at some of the newer things we are doing, when I look at how useful Google Now is for me, I can only imagine if I translate something like Google Now into the workplace, I can imagine how useful it can be. I can imagine, I face this all the time where, I'm in meetings talking to people. I wish as I walk into the meeting, I'm shuttling, my calendar's booked back to back. I wish when I walk in and talk to someone, Google Now tells me, okay, these are the last conversations you've had with this person, and gives me contextual information that's relevant.
I'm imagining our future one-on-ones here.
There you go. But I think to me, when I think about these use cases, they are actually meaningful to me. I look at how Google Now tells me, hey, I walk to the airport and my boarding pass is there waiting for me, and I think about all those use cases for people within companies, for people in the sales force as they go talk to customers, etc. These are incredibly powerful use cases. So everything we do, I think, will apply. We are doing a lot of work around, around wearables. I constantly keep trying new things, and we're pushing the boundaries. For me, when I look at Android Wear, we have just taken the journey no different from how we took with Android when we launched the G1 phone many years ago. So we are in our first versions of these things. I look at where we will be next year, and innovation is pretty amazing. And so for me, translating that to companies is going to be exciting. Just to give an example of, we are thinking a lot about communication, how people communicate. I look at how much people travel within the context of companies, and it's very important today, absolutely, because nothing even remotely comes close to the experience of you actually traveling and meeting the people you need to. But I think technology can play a much, much bigger role. Be it what we are doing, be it when you hear things about VR, etc. For us, we work on a lot of these things. I see a lot of ideas. I can't help but think, a few years from now, how people in companies communicate and talk to each other, how real and how immersive you can make that. And I think it will happen. It'll be real, and it'll transform how people actually work together. We experiment with some of these internally, and it's game changing. And all this brings back to me, as to why it is very important. I think, as companies, you have to be thoughtful about how you evolve your internal architecture. But the world is shifting so fast, and there's so many innovations coming down on this side. I think getting it ready and moving to a truly, cloud-first, mobile-first architecture, etc., is going to be very, very important.
We've talked about devices and Android and Chrome and apps and wearables and communication and so on. And I think even from inside Google, it's sometimes hard to keep track of kind of everything that's going on. And as someone looking to work with Google on technology and bringing Google technology into their business, I think it can appear kind of daunting to figure out how to even get started. And in particular, some of the changes involved, are big. So I guess, how would you advise folks in this room wanting to get started with something, where to start? Like, how to engage with Google, where to look, and what to do to kind of dip a toe in the water?
Look, in my conversations with many of you, I think it's a question everyone grapples with, because your companies are doing very, very important things. You have day-to-day businesses to run, and so driving a shift on IT is very hard. And but to my earlier point, I think it's incredibly important. I think over time it becomes a competitive advantage because in the end, your external interactions and customers and people you're dealing with on their personal lives are moving on these technologies. And so I think it's almost companies to be more in touch with what's happening in the outside world. There's an imperative to shift and keep up with the times too. So I think it's a balance. The most successful things we have seen, even very large companies, increasingly we are serving many, many large companies. There are more companies we are set to announce in the next few weeks. And, these are companies, even myself, I didn't think would be on this path to transitioning to things like Google Apps at the pace at which they are doing. And a lot of them started by, identifying, important subsets of their organization, which they figured out a way to get this journey started, right? And it's tough to take your entire company and decide to move email, etc. And it has a lot of implications. People do it, but I think depending on which stage of where your company is, figuring out portions of the company to get on. Be it we have people deploying apps in pilot ways. People deploying Chromebooks that way. And in fact, even there are, Android for work as we bring it. I think it's a great opportunity for many people to deploy it, and identify parts of the organization which can get on these new technologies. And that way everyone can learn. And so we are increasingly seeing that a lot. And I think it's a good way to bootstrap and get it started. Mm-hmm. But, the thing though I would say is, for me, the question I guess a lot of grapple. Obviously, Microsoft is a very, very important player. They're very strong, and I think they're strong and they're deeply entrenched. We face it all the time, and so they've been at it a lot longer than us. They probably speak the language much better than we do. We are learning as we go along. But, we are deeply committed. We are running our company this way internally. And we are now at this point where, we are serving companies of all scales and sizes globally. And so we are well past the hump of where we are in terms of the kinds of companies we are serving, multi-billion-dollar companies today. And, our commitment gets deeper every day. I talked about all the products and services we're bringing along. And I do think the choice couldn't be, I think it's a very, very important shift in computing underway. And, in the end, Microsoft has a strategy which is fundamentally rooted on a thick client desktop strategy, which they are, talking all the right languages, but underneath it, they have to shift their platforms to actually reflect that. I think, they're trying hard to do that, We come from a different place, for us, as I said earlier, things like cloud, etc. For us, there's nothing called cloud first internally because we wrote these things to be cloud applications, and from the ground up. And, Android is the most successful mobile platform out there, right? And so for us, internalizing a mobile first OS is not an afterthought. It's not that we think about how to bring Windows to mobile. Android is a mobile OS. From the ground up, it was built for mobile. And increasingly what mobile is, I think will span beyond phones. I'm beginning to use it and I can see the power of it. So the shift, by the time Microsoft figures out how to, transition their stuff to work on phones, I think the world will move a step further. And, this is how technology works. So I think, it's one of, computing shifts are profound. They take time, but the shift is, definite, real. There's no going back as far as I can see. And so, I think it's important for companies to figure out how to drive this shift.
Many more questions I would like to ask you, but we're out of time. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all. Hope to see you more.
Good morning. So I'm a newbie again after many years. I'm one of the newest people to join Google's cloud platform team, and my role is to help lead our direction, as we build our cloud platform products. I love movies, but I love technology as well. And so for 25 years, I've been passionate about technology. And usually that's landed me in the enterprise computing space, building products for large customers. But I don't ever remember over the course of that 25 years ever a day of being bored. To be honest, I think that's because over that course of time, I've always been really fortunate to land on working on some really interesting projects. From X-Window systems, onto Unix, clustering and high availability, distributed systems, Linux, open source virtualization, and then ultimately OpenStack. And I think the fortune continues because today I get to stand here and I get to work on the public cloud. But I think, all too often, great technology projects, are fun, but the best part about a technology project is when you can put it in the hands of users, right? And really just make some profound impact on what they're able to do. And I think too often, business-to-business technologies can focus on technology for technology's sake. And I think that's one thing that consumer companies have really figured out. They really figured out how to focus on the user. And at Google, I think we have the best of both worlds. Amazing technology and a focus on the user. So, it's been 8 weeks since I've been here, and I think it's a little bit like being a kid in a candy store, because I get from the inside to see all this great computer science that powers Google. And in some way, I think that's the mission of cloud platform, is to take that candy and bring it to you through these elegant APIs and user interfaces, whether you're a developer working at a startup or you're an IT manager in a large company. So I don't really think that, this combination of world-class technology, fast innovation, and a focus on the user really exists anywhere else in the world today. So that's what really, got me excited about coming to Google, because it's not really about the state of what the cloud is today, but where we can bring it. I think that the generation 1 of the public cloud is fantastic, but it's largely been about moving a virtual machine into somebody else's data center. Today's cloud is largely really the externalization of the existing IT department and on-premise infrastructure, where you're still dealing largely with the same set of primitives and asking the same set of questions. What size server do you need? How much memory should it have? How fast should it be? How many do you want? How much disk space? What flavor operating system do you want to use? That said, in spite of the early state of cloud, it does deliver on some amazing benefits, right? Now you can actually provision whole systems with an API instead of a purchase order. You don't have to think about planning ahead of time all the resources that you're going to need as you scale, but yet they're readily there for you elastically, and you're only going to pay for what you use. And it's all delivered on a cost model, that can't be matched internally, driven through the economics of the public cloud and the fact that it's multi-tenant, which really drives shared usage and better utilization. But the model still is largely the same. And IT departments really are bearing the big part of the burden of administering their IT assets in the sky. So, at Google, our vision for the cloud is a journey that goes beyond outsourcing hardware management. We're going to invest in innovation, but that innovation is to actually allow our users to innovate. We want to be able to change what our users are able to do, not just where they're doing it. And we want to relieve developers and sysadmins of that operational burden, because they're spending far too much of their time and dollars on administrative aspects. And we want to continuously deliver unparalleled price performance. IT capability actually evolves, relatively slowly, but every now and then disruptions come along. And once these disruptions are actually, they're disruptive by name, but once they're actually taken advantage of and internalized, they can actually step function up the capability that IT has, the performance they have, and often cost and efficiency. Over the years, the frequency of these disruptions are actually quickening. And when you look at just like the last 15 years alone, IT has moved through a series of them. Think back around 2000 with x86 and Linux, and as it entered the enterprise. Prior to that, it was all proprietary Unix systems, which everybody thought were great, on expensive risk hardware. I remember, back in 2000, working for Red Hat, working with some Wall Street banks, and they were seeing 200-fold increases in performance just by moving to Linux, and those were the early days. Not to mention, the cost improvement of Intel. And that, today, that platform back then is the platform that not only has changed enterprise, but it's also the platform on which we're building public cloud. And then as those x86 systems got a little bit bigger and single applications couldn't consume and utilize the whole system, along comes virtualization, with VMware, Xen, and then ultimately KVM. And then in the last 5 years with public cloud. So just as we're getting our heads around this public cloud thing, along comes the next disruption, containers. So when you think about it though, container technology is really conceptually very simple. You're taking an application and you're encapsulating it inside of a single file. And then you're taking the underlying operating system and you're changing it. An operating system that in the past just ran processes, and we're retooling it so that now it can run these things called containers and run multiple containers simultaneously at the same time. So that's interesting technology. But the reason why it's gotten so popular is because even in its early state, it delivers really great benefits already for both developers and system administrators. You think about what developers can do is they can now package their applications and all the dependencies that their application has into that single file. And so what that means is they now have reach for their application because they can deliver it across all these other platforms, variations in operating systems and public clouds without them having to worry about the nuances of each of those platforms and the configuration details. And it's very rapid. It's really easy to spin up and tear down a container, so it makes for a really quick development cycle for the developer. And many applications aren't just a single instance and a single process server instance. Instead, many applications, when you think about it, have a back-end database store, they have a front-end web server, they have an app server tier where your business and app logic is, maybe a caching engine. So now, each of those service components that make up an application, they too can be packaged as containers, and then they can be distributed and ran across horizontal infrastructure. And because there's an API around all of this, it makes it really easy for developers to just plug in container technology into their CI systems. So it makes it really quick to do testing. For system administrators, now installing an application is as simple as copying a single file onto the system. And because of that portability, most sysadmins aren't dealing with homogeneous infrastructure. Even one version of an operating system that they manage probably has multiple versions of major and minor releases at different patch streams. And then in most all cases, you've got lots of operating systems inside. And then now they're bringing in public cloud. So this whole concept of sort of containerization of the application couldn't have come at a better time to help IT and sysadmins tame heterogeneous infrastructure. And because all the application dependencies now actually live inside of the container, they're actually able to run multiple containers and applications on a single operating system platform without those dependencies of one application conflicting with the other. And then through the API to container management, they are able to plug it into their provisioning infrastructure. So now they can provision really easily containers on the fly for their test systems or their prod environments. So Google's certainly no stranger to containers, right? Google's been based on containers for years, long before the word container existed. And today, everything they do is spun up inside of a container. 2 billion containers are started every week at Google. So it's an experience that has led to many contributions, including to the Linux kernel itself. In fact, it was about 2008 when Google contributed the C Groups project. And what that was about was that when a system's running multiple containers, it's really easy for them, the performance to conflict with each other. So C Groups was really about how do you do a quality of service envelope in the Linux kernel around containers. And that was back in 2008. So cloud platform users are going to get to experience the benefits of a container-based architecture. In addition to being able to just spin up virtual machines, you're now going to be able to spin up whole clusters of virtual machines that are purpose-built for hosting containers. So, and then along comes this thing called Docker 18 months ago, right? And so quickly, Docker has become really the de facto industry standard for that file representation of what that container looks like. And so what that means now is that any application or application service that's packaged as a Docker file can easily be deployed across this horizontal infrastructure in the cloud. As consumers, we've long become accustomed that we can take out our mobile phone, we can search for that application, and we can install it in seconds. And now with this, with container technology, that same paradigm is coming to the cloud. So as users of cloud platform, we get that you're probably not going to be managing 2 billion containers. But even managing 10, 100, or 1,000 can get complex pretty quickly. And it really doesn't have to, and it shouldn't be that way. The number of sysadmins that you have shouldn't grow proportionally to the number of things that they're actually managing. So what we've done is we've taken our internal experience around all the containers and running containers and orchestrating containers, and we created Kubernetes. And what Kubernetes is, it's an API that makes managing a container environment dead simple. And so now with a single command, you can actually deploy a fleet of applications and all their services, across the cloud. We open sourced it, as Jörg was saying earlier this year, because in our opinion, the code and the API for technology, this critical, this important, shouldn't be held to just one company. But cloud is more than just compute, right? It's the convergence of compute, networking, and data into a globally accessible service increasingly accessed by mobile applications. So just as our experience in containers at scale is going to benefit the users of cloud platform, so too will our heritage in networking, data, and mobile. So I want to thank everybody for sharing the day with us, and I really hope it's a great one.